Hey gang, so today I'm going to be showing you how you can quickly and easily integrate authentication into your React application. We're going to be using Next.js for the purpose of this demonstration, but this service will equally integrate into other React-based products. SuperTokens is really great. They offer an amazing developer experience. I was thoroughly impressed with how quickly I was able to integrate this. And the big bonus is that they have a very generous pricing model, which includes free 5,000 unique users logging into your application in a month period. After that, for each additional unique user on top of that 5,000 logging into your application, you'll pay an additional 2 cents for their login. To be honest, if you're getting into a point where you're getting 5,000 unique users utilizing your application within a month, you're probably at a point that you can start consider building out a bespoke solution. But before you get there, I strongly recommend that you use a service such as this so you can instead focus on building your app and doing all the fun stuff. So let's have a look at the different authentication styles that SuperTokens provides. We'll go through to their documentation, hit their guides, and we'll be presented with this kind of list of recipes, as they call them. You can see the more traditional login approach, which includes a username and password. I'm personally not a big fan of this. I mean, passwords are so difficult to manage and remember unless you're using a password manager, and the typical user on the streets doesn't tend to use those in my experience. I think we should set our users up for success and utilize more modern approaches for logging into an application. And some of those could be utilizing a social login, which means that you can essentially embed these different buttons that would then link off to like Google or GitHub or Facebook, etc., and allow the users to authenticate using their respective accounts with those providers. Another one model that I've seen, which is becoming more popular and is probably one of my favorites at the moment, is passwordless based login. And so what this includes is that the users would essentially provide an email address or a phone number. Click continue. They would then receive an email or a text message to their phone, and they would then click the magic link contained within the email or utilize the one-time password sent to their mobile device in order to complete their authentication process. Really great. The SuperTokens does provide some other advanced use cases. I'm not going to cover those. I think we're just going to go for the bare bones authentication for the purpose of this tutorial. Cool. So to demonstrate all of this, I'm going to build a Next.js application. We're going to build it from the ground up. We're going to add some base styling using Tailwind, and then we're going to flesh out some UI for our application. And after that's all done, we'll go back to SuperTokens, sign up for an account, configure everything, and then do the integration and make sure our application is working as we expect it to. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is shoot over to Next.js, go to the docs, scroll down and copy the command which will help us bootstrap our Next.js application. We'll toggle into VS Code. Paste the command. I'm going to insist that it use npm as I have multiple package managers on my machine and I don't want it choosing another. Let's name our application SuperAuth. It's going to run and install our dependencies. Boom. Let's cd into our app SuperAuth. Okay, and then let's ensure that it is open in our code session. Cool, so you can see that our application has been bootstrapped with the default Next.js template. Next thing I'm going to do is actually open up our terminal again, and I'm going to run the dev command. Let's hit that in our browser. And boom. We have a Next.js application. Okay, let's do some cleanup first. Shoot back to VS Code. I know I'm definitely not going to be using this stuff over here. Let's go to our pages and just delete all of this over here. And div. And I'll put in an H1 over here to do. Let's remove this stuff. Don't need that anymore. Shoot over to our app. That's all okay. API, we're not going to be using that. Brilliant. Okay, so I think let's see how things look over here. Okay, that's okay. Cool. So the next thing I want to do is set up Tailwind to help me quickly bootstrap our UI. Tailwind is a CSS framework. It's strictly not required to get this Auth implementation up and running. I'm purely using it as a matter of convenience, so I can kind of get through the UI as quickly as possible. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. You can mostly ignore it and just focus on the Auth bits as we get to that. So let's shoot over to the Tailwind docs. I can't type today. Tailwind CSS. Yeah, that's the one. And they do have an integration guide for Next.js, which is over here. And now we can just kind of copy these commands. I've already created my Next.js app. So we'll need these dependencies, shoot back to VS Code. I'm going to cancel my dev command, pop those in, run that. Boom. Okay. Next step, we need to run the Tailwind initialization script. Shoot back to VS Code, pop that in, run that. Boom, you can see a few files have popped in. We've got a Tailwind config, post CSS config, all good. Let's go. Next one, we need to update our Tailwind config so that it is targeting our Next.js pages and components. We'll go to Tailwind. We can just select all and paste that over there. That's all great. Next step, we need to update our global CSS file to have this content here. And that is contained in styles, globals. I'll just select all of that, which is the default Next.js CSS, and boom. Now we'll go in here, npm run dev. Yeah, that's a good sign. And let's do that, npm run dev. And we'll go back to our application. Hit refresh. Our Next.js styles have disappeared. We've just got some base styling. That's all good. So next step is we're going to be building out our UI. Cool, so Tailwind is really going to help us move fast on this process. I think the first thing we're going to do is go back to our home page. Let's expand this. This H1, I think let's add a class name to this. We're going to make the font extra bold. And we will say that it is text, I don't know, 6XL, and let's center our text, and we'll add some margin bottom, 8. Okay, let's see what that looks like in our browser. Yeah, that's cool. Go back. Let's change this text. Hey gang. And we'll add a little paragraph underneath here. Sign in for awesome stuff. Okay, let's add some styling to this too. And we're going to just say center. Let's shoot back to see what that looks like. All good. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is maybe add some layout to this. I want like a navigation bar at the top above here. We're going to reuse this navigation across multiple pages. So I'm going to create a layout component. So let's go and create a new folder over here, components. And I'm just going to call it layout.js. And we're going to say export default function layout over here. And over here, we're going to do that. And then what do we want to go in here? So we want maybe just a wrapping div. And inside here, we're going to have a header. And then we will have a main section. And this is where we will render our content from the pages. So let's grab that from our props. And inside our header, let's expand that out. I think we will start with perhaps having like a kind of logo / app name on the side. Say flex, justify between, and actually, yeah, let's move this over here. What I'll do, let's first expand out this style. So in our header, I'm going to use flex layout so that our top header nav components lay out nicely. So we'll do justify between. We're going to do item centers, so they're all neatly aligned to their centers, and we will give it a height of about 12. I want to do some base layout as well on the wrapping div. I'm going to say that we want our application to be min the full screen height. I'm going to add some padding on the horizontal lines of 8. Then we want the max width of our application to be 5XL is good, and we want margin auto on it so that our application would center nicely. Let's pop that over there. Okay, before we go any further, let's actually integrate this layout into our current home page. We'll go back there. Let's pop that there. Okay, add a bit of spacing over there and shoot into our app. Okay, cool. We can see that we've got a header over here. We've got the kind of max width and center going on with our content. That's looking great so far. So let's go back to our layout and see what we want in this header. So I think we're going to have 2 sections. We'll have like a kind of left area, which would be kind of like a logo, and right section, which will be our navigation. Let's implement these as separate components over here. Logo.js, export default function, logo. Okay, so what do we want in our logo? Let's maybe make it a span. Class name, we want it to be font extra bold, and we're going to have a link in here from Next.js. The link will take us back to the home page. So anytime users click our logo, they'll be taken back to the home page. Then we'll need a wrapping span in here, as I'm going to have a couple of items. I'm going to use flex to make sure that the items are nicely aligned to their centers. And then we're going to have an image in here. I'll come back to that, and then I'll just call it my app for here. So this image, we're going to need a resource. I'm going to go and nab a resource and paste it into our public folder. And it's going to be something on brand. Source sock the dev.jpg over here. And let's add some class names to this. So we want it to be width of 9, height of 9, rounded full, and margin right 2. Let's save that. Go back here. We should be able to quickly, it would allow me to do that. Import logo from logo. We're good to go. Let's comment this out for now and go and see how things are looking. Okay, great. We've got our app logo up there. Let's focus on navigation next. So I'm going to go and create a new component over here. Navigation, boom, export, default, function, navigation. And let's get ready to add this. And so I think what we're going to do is use a nav. And inside our nav, we will use a list. And the first item on our list can be a link to our dashboard. And we'll want the dashboard to be protected. So requiring users to be authenticated to access that. The next item on our navigation will be a logout. And let's just make that a button for now. Log out. We'll get back to that one later. And then another one will be a button to log in. And then we don't have a login right now. We'll get back to that later. Log in, log out. Yeah. Okay, I think what we're going to do is add some styling to these because otherwise they're going to be a bit squished. So we'll add some padding to those. Let's just copy that into all of them. And I think that should be good enough for now. We'll come back to our layout, import the navigation, and then we should be able to uncomment this block. Go and see what things look like. Oh, it expects an href. Okay, let's got that. Link to, oh yeah, there we go. href. href. Okay, and boom. Okay, it's not laying out nicely. I think we just need to do a flex layout to fix that. Let's go back over here. Class name, flex, justify our stuff between maybe, and align middle. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, boom. That looks great. Okay, so we've got our base layout. I think the next thing that we want to do is be able to go and build out this dashboard page. So let's go back to our VS Code and add a new page over here. Dashboard.jsx. Okay, and export default function dashboard. And that, and we're going to get our dashboard together. I think what we need to do is similar to the other page. We'll need our layout, and then over here we will do an H1. I want to be consistent here and just copy and paste this stuff across. I mean, typically you would move these things into components and share them, so you're not having to copy and paste class names everywhere. You kind of want this class name stuff abstracted away by components, but this is a demo and we're focusing on Auth, not building a design system. So let's name this appropriately, dashboard. And over here, we want something for them to see. Let's be a bit more fun and maybe drop in a pair of socks. And let's say that we want this to be a bit larger. Text, I don't know, 9XL. Let's save that. And now we should be able to go to our app and click dashboard, and boom, that does nothing. That's going to take us to a 404. Let's go back here. Yeah, so we've bootstrapped our base application now. We've got the typical logo click for the home page. We have a dashboard. Our intention for this dashboard is for it to be hidden behind an authorization system. We've also got these log out, login links that are always showing. So yeah, we kind of want this navigation to be a bit more session aware based on if the user is logged in. We want to hide or show the appropriate links, etc. So I think for the next part of the demonstration, we're going to get into the meat of things and set up SuperTokens. Cool, so now this is kind of where the fun begins. Let's shoot back to SuperTokens. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually sign up for a new account, and we're going to do, I don't know, sock the dev, and email address will be sockthedev@gmail.com, and password and sign up. And the first thing it's going to ask us is where we want our managed service to be run. I'm going to choose US East 1 because that's where a lot of applications run by default. Boom! We have our service up and running. Okay, so it's got a couple of things here. So we've got a development environment and a production environment. Let's just focus on our development environment first. That's great that they provide a distinction. It means that you can kind of build out your integration, prove that out locally. Once you've got that set up correctly, you can then update the configuration for your production deployments and then deploy that accordingly. So let's just follow their docs on this. Visit the docs. So what do we want to do? We're going to go for my favorite, passwordless based login. Okay, let's click through to that. I see it's got integration guide for Next.js. We click that one. Yeah, okay, so it's telling us the steps that we're going to be doing. That's fine. It's actually got a created Next.js app already. We're not going to do that. We want to actually build things with our existing Next app. So let's just follow the next step of the process. Okay, so it wants us to install all of these packages. I'm going to copy that over there, shoot back to VS Code, stop our dev server, npm install all of those. And okay, it looks like those are going. Let's hit back to the docs and see what the next step will be. Okay, step 2, we're going to have to create a config folder in the root of our directory, and then we need to create these 3 files: app info, backend config, front end config. Let's just go ahead and do that. So new folder, config, and hopefully I can remember these: app info.js, backend config.js, and frontend config.js. Okay, we've got those 3 files set up. Let's see what it says now. Create the app info configuration. Okay, so we've actually got some configuration values already configured here. Let's just copy those into our app info. Boom, super auth, localhost 3000, localhost 3000, which is going to be running against our next instance. That's all good. Next bit, we're going to be doing front-end configuration, and it's going to be passwordless based logins. That's all good. So let's copy that into our front-end config. Save that. Awesome. Next one, our backend config. Okay, what's going on over here? I'm not going to pull it apart. Let's just trust that it works as is. It's got some TypeScript stuff over here. So this is an annotation that you can add to a anonymous function or a function or whatever, stating the type of data that you expect back. We're not using TypeScript right now, so if you're also not doing, I think the safe bet is just to remove that, and you should be good. I see that's killed this reference, so let's just remove that. Okay, next step. Configure call the front end initialization, and this is going to go into our app. So we want all of this over here. Let's shoot back to our app in Next.js. Pop those down there. Okay, so I see it's imported that. We've imported our front-end config that we've created recently, and then we only want this to be running on the front end. So it's checking to see if the window global exists. If it does exist, then it's going to call the SuperTokens React initialization. Okay, all good. Then they wanted us to wrap our component with this wrapper over here. Let's do that. SuperTokens wrapper. Save that. Okay. Do we use Axios on the front end? No, we are not. Okay. Next one. Showing the login UI. Okay, so we have to create a page which will host the login UI, which will allow the users then to enter their details and initiate the authentication process. So they want us to create a subfolder in our pages called Auth, and then have this pattern matching page. I see they're doing TSX over here, which implies that they the use of TypeScript. We are using JavaScript in our case, so we'll change that to JSX. I'm going to copy this whole thing like this. I'm going to go back in here, say a new file, paste that in. VS Code will automatically create the folder for me. Rename that to JSX, press enter, auth, boom. Okay, and then the content of this needs to be that. I'm going to copy that. Boom. And again, I see something that belongs in TypeScript land. So we can just remove that. Press save. It looks like everything else is all good. And now it already wants us to visit the auth on our website to test this. That's exciting. So let's make sure our dev server is running. Let's go back to our browser. We had a session over here. Refresh that to make sure everything's all good. We already hooked up our login button to go to the auth page. So let's click that. Boom, we have the login UI. That was insanely fast to get up and running. We're leveraging the SuperTokens UI components in our Next.js app. It's not going to do anything quite yet because we haven't hooked up the backend stuff to it, but it's great to see this rendering out already. It'd be great if we can get the header component rendered out so that it feels a bit more integrated into our application. So let's just see how easy that might be. We're back on the auth page over here. Let's just wrap this component that they're returning with not SuperToken, with our layout. Cut that, pop that to the end, save. Let's go back to our browser, and awesome. That is really, really great. Okay, let's hit to the SuperToken docs again. If you see the login UI, then you have successfully completed this step. Boom. Awesome. Next, adding Auth APIs. Let's go. So this is going to make our login form work. Okay, so the first thing it wants us to do is to add a Next.js API. So it's going to be in an auth folder, and it's going to have this spread operation, which will allow it to handle any paths that are below the auth kind of URL. It's wanting TSX, which is a bit strange. TypeScript for one, so we'll avoid that and turn that into JS. And yeah, we don't need the X, as there's not going to be any React in this. This is just an API route. So let's copy this part of it. We've got an API folder already. Shoot to our VS Code. I'm going to clean up some of these tabs over here. Go over here, say new file, pop that in. We want that to be JS. Cool. So this is the back end to our front end component page that we've added over here. So let's go back to the back end. We need to grab the implementation from the SuperTokens docs. It's got that all laid out over here. Hit copy, go back across, paste, and again, there's naughty. They've got some TypeScript stuff here. They're assuming everybody is using TypeScript. TypeScript is awesome, but not everybody is using it quite yet. So we remove that, clean that up over there. And I think that is good to go. Let's see what they say on the docs. So yeah, use your login widget. Okay, let's go back to over here. Let's see what happens if we do sockthedev@gmail.com. Enter that. Link sent. We have sent a link to sockthedev@gmail.com. Click the link to log in or sign up. Resend in 876. Okay, let's go to Gmail. Boom, boom, boom. And we've already got our email. That's great. Hit the login button. I saw that it expires in 15 minutes, which is great. Awesome. We're back in our app. We've got an authenticated session. It's not really doing much right now. We can still kind of click around. But yeah, that's really, really great. Okay, so what do we want to do next? I think we want to start to leverage this session to start to protect some of our routes explicitly, being the dashboard route. So let's see if that is covered in the next step. It is protecting a website route. Okay, so to do that, all we need to do is import this component and wrap that in around our page. Okay, so we want to open up the dashboard, and we're going to pop that in over here, paste that down, session layout, session auth, wrap that around our dashboard, hit save, go back to our application. Is this going to work? I mean, we can still access the dashboard because we did log in recently. Let's put it to the test. Clear out our site data. Let's close that, hit refresh, and boom, we've been redirected to our auth with the redirect path set back to the dashboard after we log in again. So let's just keep on testing this out a bit. Yeah, it's all working as expected. So let's do sockthedev@gmail.com again. Okay, back to our page. We'll delete this old one, wait for the new one to pop in. Hit that, logging us in. Yay! We are back in business. That's great. So we've done the initial steps in creating a secure route. Users are required to log in to be able to access the dashboard, but they've got a still suboptimal experience in that they're seeing all of this stuff. Log in, log out isn't quite implemented yet. I think that would be a great next step for us. And then after that, we can focus on toggling these navigation items depending on if they have an active session or not. So let's head back to the docs. Do they have something about implementing sign out? Yeah, there we go. Let's copy that. We'll head back to our code, go to the navigation, close everything else. We're going to import that. It wants us to create a handler on logout, click. It was an async process, so we're going to have the async keyword there. We will await the sign out command from our SuperToken library, and then once that's completed, we'll just redirect the user to the home page, And we'll add that over here. And now we should be able to log out. So let's go back to our UI. Where was it? Clean up a few of these tabs over here and click log out. And we are logged out. Okay, let's put that to the test. Can we still access the dashboard? No, we cannot. Awesome. Okay, so the final step I think we need to do is just be able to kind of toggle these items. So for that, we need access to the session data within our page, or our components rather. Let's go back to the docs. Let's see what we got here. Using custom UI, integrations, customizations, get user info. That sounds like a good one. We don't want that one. That one. Fetching on the front end. Here we go. Use session context. Awesome. So this will say the session is loading. Otherwise, does the session exist? That will give us everything we need. So let's import that. We'll go back to our navigation. Pop that in there. We're going to do our session context. Const session equals use session context, and then we want to say, okay, so the session might be in a loading state, in which case we won't show anything if the session is still loading. And that might be if it's rehydrating a session after a login redirect. And then we have this is session does exist. Okay. And then let's just make that over here. Session does exist. And that. So we require a session for them to see the dashboard. Let's test that. Going back to our UI. Aha, they can no longer see the dashboard, which is great. They can still see the logout. So let's do that same process for the logout. Over there. Session does exist. Aha, okay. Let's try log in. Suck the dev. That's gmail.com. Go back to our inbox, delete the old one, wait for the new one to pop in. Boom, hit that. We are logging in. And we see our dashboard and logout buttons. Great, but we still see the login. So let's go make sure that that's not shown. So we want to kind of inverse this and say not. Okay, let's go back, and they no longer see the login. So get dashboard, we can log out, and then we no longer see the dashboard. If the user tries to hit the dashboard directly, they are going to be redirected to our authorization page. And that's it. That's how quickly and easy we can get authorization set up in our application. Now, there's a lot more stuff that SuperTokens supports, but I think this is a great way to get up and running quickly. Their docs do describe other mechanisms where you can kind of access your session data within your backend API functions and other mechanisms of utilizing it within your UI. So you can kind of retrieve the user IDs, etc. Perhaps you want to create like an associated record in your database to match the SuperTokens user, or associate other data that you're creating with your application with a specific user. I'm not going to cover all of that right now. That would be a much larger session, but yeah, do give me feedback in the comments, and if there is enough drive for any specific demos, I can certainly look into putting something together for you guys. Till next time, adios.